Hello everybody, my name is Novi and welcome back to the channel. When I think about the future of wrestling after the stars of the 2000s wrap it up, I get a little spooked. Who takes over when Danielson, Joe, Styles, Owens, Punk, Zayn, other guys like that just can't do it anymore? There's definitely some names I can point to, but a void in top men's talent seems like almost a certainty. And I don't know what it means for this game. But luckily, that is just one side of this game. Because when I look over to the future of women's wrestling, I feel almost zen. And that's because there's so many young women's wrestlers that are already taking over, or who are set to take over within the next few years. And that right there gives me hope when it comes to women's wrestling. It excites me when I look into the future. And it's why today, I wanted to do something special. I wanted to do a women's wrestling version of the Forbes 30 Under 30 list, where we take the time to highlight some of the established stars of women's graps, and of course, the stars of tomorrow. But it should be said before we get into all of this, I'm not doing 30 wrestlers. I'll do 15, but doing 30 is just insane. And also, doing 15 gives me time to highlight each of the names we're going to go over today. Also, this list is not ranked in any particular order, because if I were to rank it like that, the comments would get very scary very fast, and I don't want to see that. Now, with that out there, before we get started, make sure to leave a like on this video, and also subscribe to the channel for match reviews, live streams, and new videos just like these, where we're always talking graps. Now, let's start this whole thing off with probably the biggest star of this under 30 list, 27-year-old Rhea Ripley, a woman who is pretty much the centerpiece of WWE's women's division right now, and has been for the last few years at minimum. Rhea's number one strength, in my opinion, is how she connects with the WWE audience. There's many reasons for that, of course, with some being a little bit more infatuation based, but what can't be denied is that it's gotten her to where she is now. It's what's helped her amass this almost cult-like following she seems to have, for better or for worse. And truthfully, she deserves credit for that, because she's a big reason for that. However, when we look at her in the ring, I think we see flashes of greatness, with the most prominent example of that being the match against Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania 39, which is easily her best match ever by a long shot, in my opinion. But outside of that and some other moments throughout the years, she's been more inconsistent than I'd like her to be as a top star, to the point where I'd even deem her a wrestler that's usually good, but more rarely great. And that's not due to a lack of ability or anything like that. I think she has the tools, but she just doesn't put it together sometimes. And in all honesty, that hurts her case a little bit. Even still though, I think when we take into account how central she is to her promotion and the heights that I've seen her reach, she still very much deserves a spot on this list. Since we started with the WWE, we might as well move over to another WWE name, because it just kind of feels right. So that's what I'll do, except that WWE name is someone that's in NXT, a place with 1,000,001 prospects to choose between. But the one I'm going with is very predictable if you watched my last video, and stands out more than anyone else on that brand. It's the current NXT Women's Champion, 22-year-old Roxanne Perez, who works like a wrestler that you'd never guess is 22 years old. Not just because of her smoothness or her polish in the ring, but because of how she's able to lead matches with talents that are greener than grass, on a level that just shouldn't be possible for, again, a 22-year-old. On top of that too, her heel turn has really helped her improve in the departments that she was lacking in before. Not to say she's incredible with the stick or has some next level presence now, but she's clearly so much better than when she was a babyface, which is something I'm not sure that many people would have predicted when she first flipped. And given that, plus the fact that she's this good at 22, something I will never stop saying because it's insane, I'd say she's as close a lock as any NXT talent to be really great on the main roster. Roxanne Perez is just a natural, and with all that potential that I just highlighted and highlighted last week, definitely deserves a spot on this list. Next, we might as well move over to the other major US promotion, AEW, where we have a few very notable under 30 talents that deserve spots on this list. None more so than 29-year-old Jamie Hayter though, who before suffering her injury in 2023 was one of the best overall wrestlers in the entire world, and was also on track to have pretty easily the best AEW Women's World title run in its history. One, because the fans just kind of got behind her like no one before, and two, because her output in the ring was top notch, with her matches against Riho, Emi Sakura, and especially Hikaru Shida standing out as some very, very special stuff. All of that makes the injury feel so much more unfortunate because it's clear she had it all going for her before it happened. And the fact that it left her out for as long as it did, I think justifiably had people wondering whether she'd come back the same. But since we've seen her work post All In return, I can happily report to all of you that she hasn't lost a step between those ropes. And if she's back on form, if she's back being that version of Jamie Hayter that I know we all loved, I have no doubt she can take over the AEW women's division once again. And for that, and for everything else she had done before, she definitely deserves a spot on this list. Just like before, let's keep with AEW as we move forward, and since we just mentioned it, we might as well talk about the woman who took that belt from Jamie Hayter in 2023, the woman who's kept this division rocking and rolling ever since, 28-year-old Toni Storm. A name I'm not sure many of you expected to be here, given that her being 28 shocks literally everyone who didn't know. But it's true. I checked the birth certificate and everything. Truthfully though, thinking about that for a minute, it's kind of crazy the career she's had to this point. 13 years from the UK Indies to Stardom to WWE and now to AEW. And it's there where she's become the best version of herself by far. Now to be clear though, I don't mean the start of her AEW run. That was interesting. And I definitely don't mean the Outcast era of her run. That was something. I mean now, since she's become timeless, she's hit her stride, at least for the last 6 months or so, where she's balanced being this over-the-top character with also being a great wrestler, something we all knew she could be, in a way that's made her very fun to watch on TV, at least for me. And when you factor in that the Mariah May feud happened during that stretch too, she's had a fantastic year overall. Toni has absolutely become one of the biggest stars of AEW, and absolutely deserves a spot on this list too. Now, since we mentioned her there, it's only right we talk about 26-year-old Mariah May up next, who could now be a very divisive name to include on this list, something that wasn't always the case. But when you take into account how her women's world title reign has gone so far, it becomes very fair. Simply because when it comes down to it, Mariah May just hasn't really stepped up to the task of being world champion. Her segments on TV have been weirdly off-putting, and her matches haven't been nearly as good as they were before she won the belt. However, I do want to say that that's not entirely her fault. She's clearly not been given the best stuff to work with, and it is her first world title run in this promotion at only 26. So while I'm willing to cut her some slack for those reasons, I also did expect better. And while I'm not 100% sure she can be the star I thought she could be before this run, I'm putting her on this list with the hope that soon enough, it'll just click for her. The talent is there and we've seen it plenty of times, but it will remain to be seen whether or not I was just too forgiving this time. To close out the AEW section of this video, let's talk about 29-year-old Kris Statlander, who is defying the laws of medicine every time she goes between those ropes. Because if you didn't know, Kris has torn both of her ACLs in both of her knees, something that theoretically should cause an athlete to lose a step no matter the sport they compete in. Kris Statlander though, it just seems to be different because she's somehow gotten better after the injuries. Not to say that she was bad before, not at all, but she's currently in the midst of the highest in-ring peak of her career. A statement that I'm not afraid to make given her proven ability to have good matches with wrestlers not known for having good matches. And I think back to her TBS title run in particular as evidence for that, where she gave average opponent after average opponent some of their best matches ever, with the most impressive of all being Julia Hart, a fine wrestler. But Kris made her look so good that it convinced TK that she could handle a run as the champ. For that, and pretty much all of her other work, Kris Statlander is one of the most underrated women's wrestlers in the entire world. And I say that despite knowing that people widely respect her. She's still underrated. Agenda pushing all the way, I don't care. She is just that good, and proves time and time again why she deserves to be a central part of the AEW women's division, and it's why she's a central part of this list. Now, despite ROH being AEW pretty much, there's still wrestlers who I consider to be ROH talent. Athena is of course 1A, but if there was a 1B, it'd be who I'm talking about next, 19-year-old Billie Starkz, who, in all honesty, despite this being a cliche at times, just kind of gets wrestling in a way that not many her age does, to say the least. Alongside 1A Athena on TV, she's only gotten better and better, and has been able to hone her natural feel for the game in a really cool way. A feeling I had cemented when she faced Athena at Final Battle 2023. A truly special one for me to watch because it felt like the birth of a young star for this wider audience. Even with all this praise though, she does still have a long way to go. She is just 19, but to show the potential that she's shown so far, earns her a spot on this list for me. Now, for real this time, we can move beyond AEW and beyond the US in general, because while there's plenty of under 30 women's stars in the United States that we could talk about, there's just so many more in Japan these days. Most notably, and most obviously, being 28-year-old Sareee, who is 1, the best women's wrestler in the world today, and 2, is carrying the Joshi scene on her back through her uber consistent in-ring output all year long, with heights that just no other women's wrestler has hit this year. Cherry on top of that too, her self-produced Sareeism shows being the home for all of these great matches. Sareee is just on a generational run, one that will be remembered forever, and things don't seem to be slowing down at all for her. If anyone has to be on this list, hell, if one person had to be on this list, it'd be Sareee, who, while being the ace of Marigold for now, as determined in my recent video, may not always be in that spot, given the fact that 26-year-old Utami Hayashishita is right on her tail. Utami is a wrestler who, when on her game, can be absolutely incredible. We've seen it in Marigold already with her match versus Io Sky, or the tag with Julia against Bozilla and, of course, Sareee. And even before that, in Stardom, you could look back to the Shuri matches alone. The only issue, though, is that she does seem to struggle with some inconsistency at times, especially as she's tried to acclimate and adjust to being outside of Stardom full-time for the first time ever. It's an issue that I definitely want to circle, and one that I want to reevaluate later down the line when I make one of these videos again. But for now, I'll stick to the belief that she can just kind of grow out of it. And I'll trust the moments of greatness that I have seen, because I believe that one day she can be the ace of Marigold. If nothing else, because it just seems kind of like destiny for her in a lot of ways. And it's why she's on this list. We've got one more for Marigold up next, and it's the youngest of the bunch, 19-year-old Victoria Yuzuki. This is a name that I'm not sure many have heard of just yet, but I promise you will very soon. Because it's clear that if you watch just one match of hers, her raw ability is something special. She has this natural smoothness, presence, and timing that just jumps off the page. And the craziest part of it all is that she's yet to hit 1 full year of having matches. That is insane. And I know I've said that about so many different things I've said about these wrestlers. A lot of them have done insane things, but that is crazy. The fact that she's that new and this good already makes me feel like she's destined to be incredible. And it's clear that Marigold sees that vision with her too, with her being the only one to pin Julia in her big going away gauntlet match. That's certainly not something that you just do. That happened for a reason. And if I had to guess, that reason is very simple. Victoria Yuzuki is just a special talent, and I'd be very naive to not include her on this list. Alright, I think it's finally time to jump over to Stardom, the promotion that has many names on this list, because of course they have many names on a list like this. The one I want to talk about most of all though is 22-year-old Azumi, because she has this very special way of mixing the technical side of wrestling with her incredibly high-paced, high-flying offense that captures me like no other. However, I'm not the only one it captures, of course I'm not, but the people I want to specifically talk about when I talk about who she's captured are the crowds that she performed for when she made her little trip to the US earlier this year. She went from being the standout worker in the Stardom x ROH showcase match to damn near stealing the show in just 10 minutes with Stephanie Vaquer on New Japan's Windy City Riot, to then knocking the Hooper back into Toni Storm on a random episode of Collision. It became clear in that mini run, and it's been clear in her work with Stardom, that Azumi is a natural star. And it's why I'm a huge believer in her becoming one of the best in the world, if she's not already. And it's why she's on this list. I think now is the perfect time to break up this run of future stars with an already established one, in 29-year-old Natsupoi. The thing about her though is that I don't really have much to say. The only thing I have to say about the leader of the Poi tribe is that she's generally just so fun to watch. Her energy and her life just infects you through the screen. That's enough to make a wrestler feel special. Not saying she hasn't had plenty of great matches. She definitely has, including some great ones this year. But that's what I've got when it comes to her making this list for me. She's just a lot of fun. And I'm pretty sure that the people who get it will get it and not be upset at this lack of analysis. How could I? This lack of analysis on Natsupoi, but if you get it, you get it. Natsupoi's on the list. Now we'll head right back over to another amazing prospect in 21-year-old Suzu Suzuki, who is a wrestler like Roxanne or like Billie from earlier, just kind of gets it. The difference with her though is that she's much more of an all-rounder than either of them are, to the point where she seems able to do anything and everything that's asked of her at a very high quality. Whether that be promos, working face or heel, comedy, or even just the matches themselves, with her bout versus Tom Nakano last week being a prime example of just how good she can be, if anyone has fallen off of that train in the last few years. Suzu is a talent I'm really excited about, and someone who I could see at the tip top of Stardom one day, which earns her a spot on this list for me. Next, we have our final Stardom name, 24-year-old Momo Watanabe, who is a very confusing case in the world of Stardom, because even though it's pretty widely accepted that she can be one of the best wrestlers in the promotion, like she was during her Wonder of Stardom Championship run in 2018-19, they've insisted on having her in Hate, the former Ueda Tai, for centuries at this point, which is really hurting her perception amongst more casual fans. Something I can't blame her for really, because being in a group like that is like having an anchor attached to your ankles at all times. As for my thoughts though, I've decided that, yeah, her being in Hate is the reason why she's not been the great wrestler we know she can be. And I'm really banking on her being freed from this group at some point to justify making the call to include her on this list. I've just seen the talent before, I know that it's there, and I think eventually we'll see it again, and I'll be proven right. But that remains to be seen. I hope I am, but for now, she is on the list. Now, after going through 14 different names, we've finally made it to the very end. And right now, I'm feeling real glad that I didn't make this 30 because these lights are heating this room up immensely. Now, aside from all that, aside from my sweaty comments, there's no other name I'd like to round this out with more so than the other Watanabe, 24-year-old Miu Watanabe, who is the heart and soul of Tokyo Joshi Pro these days, a promotion I've become a very big fan of. But that's mainly due to her incredibly organic, immensely likable personality. It isn't just some forced good guy persona with her, she just is that great of a babyface. And if nothing else, her work this year alone would earn her a spot on this list, with her putting TJPW on her back during this Princess of Princess title run she's in the midst of. Of the 14 names I've talked about already, none of their charismas or presences jumps off the screen the way Miu Watanabe's does, and it's a big reason why she's on this list. L-O-V-E, I love Miu Watanabe, and she 100% deserves to be here. And with that, that's going to do it for the video, everybody. 15 out of 15, we got through them all, and I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please make sure to leave a like on the video. Comment down below any women's under 30 names that I might have missed. I know there's plenty still on the board that I have written down myself, so if you want to see a part 2 to this video where we do another 15, comment that down below. And last thing I'll ask you to comment about, comment if you want to see a men's version of this video. And while you're down there making all those comments, make sure to subscribe to the channel where we're always talking grabs. Thank you all so much for watching. It's been Novi. Much love to each and every one of you. Peace.